There are lots of small towns and settlements that sprouted up around our area and that have long vanished from sight and memory.
But none may have been more unlikely than a Jewish communal settlement that sprang to life in the Glendale area in the mid-1980s. Well, in tonight's Oregon Trails News Watch 12's Ron Brown takes a look at New Odessa and how it happened to land in southern Oregon and what may have led to its sudden end.
This century-old farmhouse near Glendale sits at one end of what was once a Jewish communal settlement that sprang up in the 1880s in southern Douglas County. Known as New Odessa, it was apparently designed to give recent Russian Jewish refugees a chance to learn farm living and provide a safe place, far from the turmoil of their homeland in Russia.
New Odessa was launched along with several other communes throughout. There was, I think, 3 in Oregon, and there was 1 in Colorado, 1 back in Kansas, and they were Russian Jewish people who were trying to escape being slaughtered.
The mass exodus of Russian Jews stemmed from the assassination of Tsar Alexander II in 1881 and the crackdown on Jews by his son Alexander III. Many of the immigrants were from the educated classes and were sent out to farms to get back to their agricultural roots. Some say even to erase the stereotypes of Jews being financial tycoons. The settlement near Glendale, New Odessa, was of a group called the Am Olam, or the Eternal People, and came about through contacts with Henry Villard, who was building the Oregon and California Railroad through the area at the time.
There was 760 acres. And it encompassed a whole strip across the valley here, clear up to the top of the divide between the Glendale side and the Wolf Creek side.
In addition to raising their own food, they cut timber for railroad ties, locomotive fuel, and bridge and trestle timbers.
The people here had to depend for cash money on selling timber in the form of wood and railroad ties to the railroad. And the Chinese people undercut them, sold more than they did, and this is how they lost out, because they couldn't pay the mortgage on it.
4 people promised to put up the $4,800 for the property in 1883, $2,000 down. Men and women shared the chores of farming and housekeeping. Most were single men, but there were a few couples who lived in small cabins nearby. But divisions soon developed, perhaps over differences in Jewish belief. Citing one report by Helen Blumenthal, Dilt says,
there was too many branches of the Jewish religion, and they quarreled constantly, and therefore they didn't stay united.
125 years ago, the land for the New Odessa settlement stretched on both sides of the valley, from up near the top of the mountain towards Wolf Creek over to the other side, all the way to what is now the Glendale city limits. But it didn't last long, only about 5 years, and Lynn Diltz has some theories as to why that failed.
There was plenty of money there, but when it came time to foreclose for lack of payment, the 4 men who owned the place were gone, and so was all the money.
She sees it as a case of embezzlement. Diltz says by 1888, New Odessa was no more, and those who hoped to make it a Zion in southern Oregon had gone.
What exactly happened to the Russian Jewish community of New Odessa will never be known. There definitely was a community where human beings lived and worked, but their stories will remain forever sealed in the one thing that remains constant, the land itself. All the rest seems to be in keeping with the ghost community.
In Glendale, Ron Brown, Newswatch 12.
Now, some 25 years later, there are reports of another Jewish farming community being established in northern Lake County near Fort Rock. A Portland paper called the Portland Jewish Tribune reported 15 families there in 1913 with plans of putting 3,000 acres under cultivation. However, the Jewish Historical Society in Portland has not been able to find much other information on that project.